Okay, it's 10 o'clock. I do have this thing. Thank you. If we'd please rise for invocation. And Supervisor Bates. With that, we'll call the meeting to order, and Supervisor Brown, if you could lead us in the pledge. Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have an agenda before us. Are there any additions or deletions? Hearing none, we'll move forward as presented. The consent agenda, Mr. McCrum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item A, approval of the June 2nd, 2026 AM and PM minutes and the June 24, 2 PM and 7 PM minutes. Item B, the board will accept the budget amendment in the amount of $1,500 for a donation for the Culpeper Rec Foundation to the Parks and Recreation Department for the purpose of a mobile pool chair. Item C, the board will consider acceptance and appropriation of a grant in the amount of $5,000 for the Northern Piedmont Community Foundation for Phase 1 construction of the Rescue Flight Dog Park at the Culpeper Airport. Item D, the board will consider extending Shane McCrum as interim county administrator through September 1st, 10 a.m. board meeting. Item F, the board will consider a resolution recognizing the 250th anniversary of our nation's founding and the Culpeper County's unique role in the Revolutionary War. Item G, the board will consider acceptance of a donation of taser equipment in the amount of $36,000 from Culpeper Town Police to the Culpeper County Sheriff's Department. Item H, the board will consider a resolution of support for an application for Smart Scale Round 7 funds for pedestrian connections and safety improvements at the intersection of Route 694 Ira Hoffman Lane and Success Drive with a multi-use path. Item I, the board will consider approving a resolution of support for an application for Smart Scale Round 7 funds for safety improvements at the intersection of Route 605 Riva Road and US Route 29 southbound. Item J, the board will consider approving a resolution of support of an application for Smart Scale Round 7 funds for safety improvements at the intersection of White Shop Road and US Route 29.
Okay, is there any further discussion? I would note for item I, Riva Road's Route 633. I'm sorry I didn't catch that earlier.
Motion to approve the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda is passed. Old business. Mr. McCrum, oh, I'm sorry. At this point, we are going to have a presentation relative to, no, what?
I was just going to offer, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like me to read the resolution recognizing the 250th anniversary of the United States. If not, we can skip it and it'll just be in the record.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Terrific idea. Thank you.
Okay.
A resolution of the Culpeper County Board of Supervisors recognizing the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, honoring the legacy of the Culpeper Minutemen. Whereas before the United States became a nation, the people of Virginia stood at the forefront of the struggle for liberty, and Culpeper County became part of a great cause. And whereas the soil of Culpeper is hallowed by the memory of patriots who answered the call of freedom and the blood of sacrifice of sons of Virginia who helped secure blessings and liberty for generations yet unborn. And whereas in 1775, the Culpeper Minutemen assembled under their famed banner and took their place among the first defenders of American independence, demonstrating courage, self-sacrifice, and an unshakable devotion to the principles of self-government and individual liberty. And whereas the story of the Culpeper Minutemen is not merely a chapter in our history, but an enduring part of our heritage, our culture, and our identity as people, reminding us that the liberties we enjoy today were purchased at great cost. And whereas the 250th anniversary of the United States of America provides an opportunity to honor the sacrifices of those patriots, preserve their memory, and pass on to future generations an appreciation for the principles and traditions that gave birth to this great nation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Culpeper County Board of Supervisors proudly recognizes the 250th anniversary of the United States of America and honors the memory and legacy of the Culpeper Minutemen and the Virginians who have fought, sacrificed, and in many cases gave their lives so that this land might remain free. Be it further resolved that the board encourages residents, schools, civic organizations, veterans groups, historical societies, and community partners to participate in educational and commemorative activities through the semi-quincentennial, celebrating both our national heritage and our Culpeper County's unique contribution to the cause of American independence.
Great. Thank you very much. Old business 3.01, board will hear a presentation and update from FiberLink regarding the countywide project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh Crawford is here from FiberLink to give a presentation on FiberLink progress and updates. Laura Loveday is also here as well, who can address any questions on, questions unique to Culpeper funding for the project, et cetera.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good to see you again. I'm here to give you an update and a summary of what we've been able to accomplish in the last month. So at a very high level, we have had our groundbreaking on 5/27, so we've been operating for about a month, weather permitting and holiday permitting. I'll go into that in just a moment. We have done approximately 5,800 feet of conduit installed as of 6:30. This has required a bit of rework along Route 3 and Stevensburg Road, as conduit was installed by the contractor that did not meet VDOT's requirements. They did not follow the permit, therefore they had to do rework. That rework has since been removed and the ground reseeded, and work is commencing on the other portions. This did not take a portion of the project conduit. This is conduit and materials that FiberLink supported with the project initially. When it comes to VDOT permitting, we have almost 19 miles in hand and about 90 miles of permits submitted. We're going back and forth with VDOT. Along Route 3, we do have to request some changes from VDOT, and they'll allow us to potentially move the location to the other side of the road due to the density of other utilities in the area. We did spend a few weeks working on the need for a resource sharing agreement with VDOT, as Route 15 is a limited access highway. Thankfully, VDOT in Richmond came back and said we did not need that due to the length. So while that did partially delay some work along Route 15, we now have a permit in hand to be able to do that. Distribution sites. So over the past month, we did work a bit with Culpeper County to obtain easements and licensing agreements for Len Park specifically. We hope to use that as a template moving forward to secure easements for Lignum Tower as well. With the Richardsville Volunteer Fire Station, we did obtain an easement from them after speaking with their board, and that should have been recorded at the clerk's office. Lignum Tower, so that would be our third site within Phase 1. We are working through the easement licensing agreement for that, again, hoping to use the Len Park as a template. So a little bit of detail on the construction. So as you can see, we have several permits in play. We do have this up on our website, so it's an interactive map that people can see the phases, but also where we are working and where we do have permits. As you can see, Stevensburg and Greens Corner, there's about 5,800 feet of conduit placed. So once that conduit has been fully put in the ground, we will commence a fiber pull. So that fiber pull is designed to, again, distribute from Len Park to citizens. You'll notice on Germanna 7 and 6, request change from VDOT. What that means is that is a request that we are asking of VDOT to change the permit that we already have in hand. So as I mentioned, that side of the road is quite full with existing utilities, so we are needing to update our permit, hopefully with the permission of VDOT. We do have Mount Dumpling Road, Jonas Road, and Algonquin in hand, and plan to work on that in the next month. So this last month has been interesting. It has caused a little bit of delay with the rework. It has, we're waiting on some materials, a cabinet for the actual Len Park site, and some subscriber equipment, so little routers and everything that goes in people's houses. We are doing our best to escalate those with our vendors, trying to find obviously the best price for the project, but also something that is within the project requirement timeline. With that in mind, we are doing our best, but we're looking at the end of August to start lighting up the first customers. We're also having some issues with weather and holiday. So as you can see from this week, thunderstorms don't really make it a great conducive environment for us to do construction. With that in mind, we do have multiple crews working simultaneously as to not slow this down. As far as holidays go, with the most recent holiday on the 4th, VDOT does not allow us to work on the 3rd, nor before noon on the Monday following. So therefore, that Monday really isn't a good day to commit resources to try to do work. Again, some right-of-way issues. We have had to go a little bit slow in certain areas, as you can imagine, along Stevensburg Road, just with how condensed the area is. So VDOT has their specifications. I know that at one point we had discussed them trying to widen the road at some point. So we're attempting to navigate that path as best you can. As you can notice from the picture, we are producing signage to let people know who we are and what we're doing. So that way, if they do go to our website and try to find out more, we have resources available to them to let them know. One note that I do have on the bottom there is delays are something that unfortunately the citizens of Culpeper and broadband fiber have heard over multiple years. I don't really want to come here with just, please wait longer. I want to come to you with paths forward. And one of those paths forward is we are working to potentially leverage REC and Dominion Middle Mile to light the node site faster while still bearing our mainline conduit to those locations. It would not depend solely on that middle mile. Obviously, I know the issues with aerial fiber, but at the end of the day, if we can get those node sites lit faster and Culpeper citizens served, that's the goal. So a little bit of an update on the timeline. We are still in the construction phase. It has been ongoing since 5/27. As I mentioned, we're looking at lighting up the Stevensburg area at the end of August 26. We are working our way towards Richardsville, aiming for October, and Lignum around November. So this works progressively east as we start to serve phase 1. We did receive contract execution on our BEAD award grant, and that primarily consists of phase 2 around Carver Center and kind of that southwestern portion of the county. We are waiting on the permitting and field design work and the crews to go out there and understand where we will be placing fiber and how will that be set up. And in the interim, what we'll be working on is establishing expectations for node sites and working with Culpeper County on where those potentially could be, very similar to the process with Len Park. And of course, we anticipate construction starting January, February. This could escalate depending on the situation, but again, that BEAD grant does infuse some money into the project itself to help build out those areas. Phase 3, so that's that northern portion. We still owe a scope of work, as we do with phase 2, to all of you to kind of commit to the rest of the contracts. But again, April 27, fielding a design work, permitting, and then a very similar process from that point forward. This does not have that updated slide.
Why don't you circle back and then I'll have Kim pull it up.
Okay.
Thanks.
So this is just the website. I wanted to kind of call that once more. We have had 291 pre-registrations as of 6:30, so we are generating interest in the area, letting people know who we are, what we're doing, and why we're there. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Kim, there's a second attachment in there. Are you able to pull it up now? There's a slide on cost per passing. Try to refresh the page.
Well, if not, I mean, well, probably be good to have the slide, but in general, what are you seeing in terms of costs per passing?
We are currently below the estimated cost per passing. So the expenses incurred to the project so far have been materials, the design and permitting, and then the acquiring of the bond for VDOT permitting. So at this point in time, because of some of the rework and things that have been done, we have not invoiced the project. I am working with the contractor who is revising their work. To that end, we have had a pretty stern conversation with them and their subcontractor for their interactions with VDOT. They were not at the standards that I would expect or would want to have for a project like this, to the point where we've had some personnel changes on their side. So while this is not disrupting the project, they have continued their work on schedule. We have gotten them to understand the importance of balancing between VDOT, Culpeper County citizens, and so on.
Okay. Supervisor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Crawford, on the, going back to 663, the Stevensburg Road, I traveled that the other day, and I noticed, it struck out that there was an open cut on going towards Culpeper, and I'm thinking, you know, we had talked about the improvements to 663 and the relocation of utilities. And I know when you start talking about relocating fiber, that gets really expensive. I mean, was there any reason why, and it appeared to be right in the ditch line
Yes.
is where they were putting this open cut. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, of course. That was part of the issue of why they needed to do rework. The permits that we were issued had the conduit placed behind the ditch line and up and away from where potentially they would have expanded the road at all. And so that was why the crews were back there removing what they had placed and then are going to replace it
Okay.
in the proper location.
Okay.
So yes, great question, because that was obviously something that was going on.
Yeah,
at
when
the
I
time.
drove by there, I'm thinking, boy, this is kind of defeating the purpose of wanting to, it's going to cost us twice. But yeah, thank you for clarification
Yes,
on that.
and that was something that it will not cost the project twice.
Thank you.
And that is, yeah, something I'm very adamant when discussing this with the contractors. So the cost per passing, I broke this down a little bit because some of
Mr.
the.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. If you don't
Mr.
mind.
Crawford, are you guys using third-party inspectors for your construction management part of what you're talking about?
So-
To prevent situations like you're speaking of?
Yeah, we can definitely consider that. So we have a member of the FiberLink staff on hand, a member of the contractor, which is Timmons Group, and then members of the subcontractor. And they've been in contact with VDOT at least once a week to come down there and view that. Viewing a third-party contractor is something we could definitely consider, knowing that, again, that additional oversight likely needed.
Okay, thank you.
So this is the cost per passing slide. Obviously, those are the top of the project cost billed to date. So portion of the construction manager, that is just the FiberLink individual who is overseeing portions, all three work zones at a time. Materials spread throughout design and permitting for a total there. Those are the estimated passings that were part of the scope of work that were agreed upon in the contract. So at the moment, we have an estimated cost per estimated passing for each of those different areas. We do have some costs incurred in the Lignum and Richardsville area because that was design and permitting and some portion of materials for those areas initially. But no construction has been charged for the project yet.
Quick question. You mentioned there were some standard issues with subs. Is that something that you would feel comfortable elaborating on?
Sure, so with the subcontract, yes, there were some issues presented with the interactions between the sub and like VDOT, for example, that were concerning to the point where, in addition to this rework, we thought that the judgment was a little bit off on a particular individual, so we asked them to be removed from the project.
That was, I'm definitely not an expert on timelines of these matters, but it seemed like, is the rework, would that be, it seemed like on Greens Corner, on Greens Corner Road, it just seemed like they were there for a very long time. So I don't know if that extended period of time was because of the rework going down, I'm assuming the rework was on Stevensburg, it wasn't on Greens?
There was a portion, I believe, on Greens Corner, not a
was.
long stretch, but something, just slight adjustments. But the majority, I drove through multiple times in the last month. There was kind of like 3 work zones set up at one point.
Yeah.
One of them was doing the remediation and the removal of conduit. The other 2 should have been producing and putting conduit in the ground.
Yeah, because that was just my thought because they were there for a very long time.
Yes.
So I assumed it had to be something out of the ordinary, so.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why, again, we're trying to stick to this timeline as much as possible by engaging multiple crews.
Okay, thank you,
Yes.
thank you.
And I think the third-party inspector approach may be your answer, because not only do you get the inspection part of it, you get the intermediation between your company and VDOT.
I agree. That's something we definitely look into.
Other questions? Thank you very much for the update.
Thank you.
3.02, Mr. McCrum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Background here, as you all know, in March, the board directed staff to release an RFP for forensic audit services. We received 5 bids. In June, we came to the board for guidance on negotiation in closed session. We've now proceeded with those negotiations with the lead contractor, Clifton, Larson, and Allen, and we now have a best and final offer we'd like to present before the board for their consideration of acceptance and appropriation of funds. The attached proposal is in the amount of $250,000. This is the cost proposal sheet. I provided you all the full proposal, which has proprietary methodology in it under executive content. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Discussion, Supervisor Bates.
Mr. Chairman, I do have questions, and I've got concern over this particular firm and the process that we went through to get to this point. When we looked at the initial proposals that came in, Clifton, Lawrence, and Allen, that was the highest of all of them at $637,000. And I believe one of the lowest bids was in the $130,000 to $140,000 range. It stands to reason that if everybody's looking at the same request for proposal, the scope of work, why there would be such a difference in the range of cost. After looking into the different firms, what we're dealing with is a national firm. They have a very deep bench of forensic professionals. But again, it may overcomplicate this thing depending on what we're looking for. And I don't know that, I think that's the question now that, you know, the board has approached this firm and said, hey, you know, you need to reevaluate your cost, and it's gone from $637,000 down to $250,000, and it just doesn't sound right to me that you can go have that kind of a spread and without changing the scope of the work. And that being the case, again, you know, we don't have, I just found out this morning that our interim county administrator is acting procurement officer, and it sounds to me that it would have to be rebid. But according to Berkeley, as Mr. McCrum has stated, that's not the case. But there's just so much confusion and questions about how we're getting to these points that it gives me concern. And in the past, I feel confident that that would have been a situation where it would have been rebid with a more defined scope of work.
Well, I'll probably respond, I'm going to respond to that one because the deliberation was in closed session, and the other members of the board that were here can correct me if I'm wrong or misremembering. Staff came, one, it was on our meeting a month ago. Staff came to us and made a recommendation of CLA. We discussed the prices and the duration. the $637,000 was for 5 years. We gave direction to staff in closed session to negotiate for up to $300,000 for 2 years. And they came back and are presenting us $250,000 for 2 years. I believe that's what we did and was the consensus of the crew. So it appears to me staff did what we asked them to do and has achieved what we're looking for.
So is there any way that we could elaborate on what was so attractive about the CLA firm versus, because I see on our next item that we're going to be discussing with Brown Edwards, they were another firm that actually applied to do this forensic audit. So if we've taken the scope from 5 years down to 2, which I don't disagree with that, but again, how do we know that the other firms, now looking at a 2-year window for this audit, that their prices wouldn't be even cheaper? And so apparently we do like Brown Edwards because we're going to entertain them on the next item on the agenda for our financial audits.
That perhaps, I don't know if it would be you, Ms.
Mr.
Wilson?
Underwood,
or
I think one of the reasons, and correct me if I'm wrong, Supervisors, when we discussed it, they were talking about the detail and the limitations, that there were, most of the other bids had limited, they would do up to so many hours, up to this and up to that. So then they would bill more once they exceeded that, and those caps seem to be maybe not as realistic as what would be needed. Is that correct?
And Mr. McCrum, have you heard either one?
Well, just to elaborate, the evaluation that we did was in line with the criteria that was listed on the RFP, and we did provide that documentation of that evaluation to the board prior to this meeting. CLA did rate the highest based off of all the proposals together, based on our evaluation using the criteria in the RFP. From there, we engaged in direct negotiations with CLA per the direction of the board until they submitted a best and final offer. This was done as directed by procurement consultants in line with the VPPA.
Anything further? Or do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and make that motion that the board accepts the proposal from Clifton Larson and Allen for the forensic audit services.
We have a second? Second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
The vote is 6-1. Next up, 3.03, Mr. McCrum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, also at the June meeting, a discussion occurred based on the practice of using our financial statement auditor over repeated years, and Finance Director Kim Goodwin had recommended to the board revisiting that practice. The board made a motion to solicit for a new financial statement auditor. Given the proximity of the fiscal year 26 audit, staff wanted to present back to the board some alternate options to going down an RFP route, since that would delay our audit. So we have two options ahead of us. One of them is to retain RFC, which we're currently under contract for this year at the cost of $70,000 a year. And we have engaged them. We could use a different team within RFC, and that would follow best practice guidance to get new eyes on your financial statement audit at the end of the year by bringing in kind of some fresh perspective from the existing contractor. Option B is that although we did not release the RFP, we went out and got 3 different quotes from local auditors using cooperative contracts, and we looked at relatively similar counties. And we did receive one quote from Brown and Edwards that was the most competitive cost-wise, and we have the ability to use a Spotsylvania ride-along contract to award to them for the fiscal year 26 financial statement audit at a cost of $112,000 for the year. So it'd be an additional cost of $42,000.
Questions of staff or discussion on this topic? So, as I understand it, we were initially looking at an RFP. Given the timing that is needed for the audit of this year, that is not practicable. So therefore, we went and got the best quotes of writing cooperative agreements that we could, and we're presenting to the board the best quote there versus an alternative of retaining RFC but using a different team. And the difference is $70,000 or $112,500. And we're looking for direction of how the board would like to proceed with our regular financial audit.
So, Mr. Chairman, so we would remain with Robinson, Farmer, and Cox, but a different team from that firm for the upcoming audit, and then move to the different firm, correct?
Sorry, no, this is an either or for fiscal year 26. For the fiscal year that just closed out, this is an either or. I'm seeking direction from the board to either stay with RFC using a new team or go with Brown and Edwards on the cooperative contract from Spotsylvania.
Okay, so then we had discussed in the future moving to a different
Well, in
firm,
the
but that would
future,
be
we would do a
following
full
this.
RFP. We got
Gotcha.
time to do everything.
Right,
Yes.
okay.
That is the
Yes, sir.
intent of staff, is that for fiscal year 27, we release an RFP for a 5-year term for the future.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Mr.
Supervisor,
Underwood,
go ahead, sorry.
the biggest thing that I see is that we've been continually going down a path of repeating what we've done, and because that's what we've always done. And I understand that we could switch next year. I would recommend going with Brown and Edwards because I think it's time to move forward and break off that contact. I think best practices should start now and not later.
Supervisor Bates?
Mr. Chairman, this is the sole reason I think that we have used Robson, Farmer, and Cox, and I want to say it's for the past 23 years, 24 years, does that sound right?
That's right.
Because of the cost. And when all this came to light in the discussion in closed session, and our new finance director in her presentation had said, you know, it's best practice to have fresh set eyes, look at these things in so many years. Don't disagree with that a little bit. But I think let me back up. Where we are is because of the previous boards and their financial, I mean, they were very stringent on what they wanted to spend. To the point of my question, and I don't know if this was an option before, of why we didn't change auditors every so many years. If the firm has multiple teams that they could put to different jurisdictions, that, again, that is a different set of eyes, and it would save the taxpayers $42,000 a year. Now, should we continue with different auditors to finish this year out and then put the RFP out and then give everybody the a fair shake at giving us their best price? I just hate wasting $42,000. But if the board, and I would go either way on the pleasure of the board, on if they feel we would get a good financial audit with a different set of eyes from the same firm. So,
Other comments or perspectives? I hear what you're saying, Supervisor Brown, and I hear what you're saying, Supervisor Bates. In my opinion, we're doing a forensic audit, so that will get us the information that is also a best practice of doing a forensic audit every 8 years or whatever. But relative to this, I believe there's a law that we need to be contracted with a firm by April 1st, which we technically met because we were contracted with RFC. Now, we can change now, and I understand the need to, or the desire to do so. I also believe RFC is, I mean, we're not the only county they do. They do well. There is cost savings, and even though it'll be a different team, if they had to go back and reference stuff, there would be benefits of at least the team that isn't doing it being there. So I'm similar to you, Supervisor Bates. I'm willing to go with the will of the board on this one. I kind of lean towards saving the money and doing the RFP, but not strong enough that I'm not willing to do whatever this board wants.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think that Supervisor Brown makes an excellent point, and I think that, I think it would behoove us at this point to, even though it's going to cost more money, to go ahead and start best practices now instead of waiting and move to the new firm, to Brown and Edwards. I'll make that in form of a motion, yes, sir.
Or is there a second? Second. We have a motion for Brown and Edwards at $112,500 for 1 year for the audit. Is there further discussion?
So, yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just want to make sure I understand this. So we can save $42,000 by deferring until when to start and work with a new company?
Till next year.
At what point next year?
So this is for the fiscal '26 audit for the year that just ended last week. And so the next audit, so we're going to have one auditor do that. Then beginning in fiscal '27, the plan for staff is to go out and do an RFP for 5 years for full consideration of the board for audit next year. We just don't have time to do it for the year that just ended. So we got a choice of 70 or 112.5.
I mean, $42,000 is a lot of money, so, yeah, I don't think I can support the motion.
Okay. Supervisor Bates.
Mr. Chairman, you brought up a very good point that I kind of overlooked, and we are doing a full-blown forensic audit with this other firm, and I don't know that we're going to accomplish anything different or extra by spending this other $42,000. So with us going with this forensic audit, I'm going to have to agree with Mr. Deal, and I will stick with the staying with Robson Farmer Cox and a new team to look at it.
Okay. Further discussion? We have a motion on the floor to go with Brown at 112.5. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Let's do this. I didn't get a good one. If you would, those in favor of going with Brown, please raise their hand. Those opposed, please raise their hand. The motion passes 4-3. Next up, the board will consider an amendment to the fiscal '27 budget. Mr. McCrone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are proposing an amendment to the fiscal year '27 budget based on the following adjustments. Starting with the first here, shortly after adopting the fiscal year '27 budget, I was evaluating the debt with our consultant Davenport and our annual debt payments, and it was brought to my attention that the previous calculations and the amortization schedule that were used to inform the fiscal year '27 budget did not include the interest rate savings that were as a result of the 2025 refunding of the early Eastern View debt that we're still paying. So there was a cost savings of roughly $604,925 in our annual school debt payment that was not factored into the fiscal year 27 budget. So I am proposing that we reduce the school payment as listed currently on our appropriation resolution from $13,646,075 to $41,150. This is, again, in consultation with Davenport, bringing this to my knowledge in the last couple of weeks, and I presented to you all the debt payment amortization schedule in board docs. So that would be the first budget amendment item. Second budget amendment item would be increasing the audit services budget. I did account for the inclusive of the $250,000 for CLA and the 42 additional for Brown and Edwards. So we don't need to make any last minute adjustments there, given you all approved that. And then the third item here is increasing the human services budget by $37,500 from their reserve fund to account for $500 issued in supplemental pay in July of 2026. So this was a letter that they sent over to the board that is provided via board docs. They had requested supplemental pay in July of 2026, given the move to biweekly pay, and they proposed using their reserves to fund that additional cost. So this is just going to be reflected in the budget as no local dollar change increase, but a total budget increase nonetheless. So given those three budget adjustments, you would have a total budget reduction of $275,000 as a result of the changes.
Questions for staff or a motion? Yes, sir, Supervisor Bates.
Mr. Chairman, to be clear, so from the Davenport report, we took the debt from Eastern View, and that was rolled over into the new debt for the new middle school renovation and Mountain Run Elementary, is that right?
Yeah,
And it was a lower interest rate
yeah.
with the refinance than
Yeah.
what we had with Eastern View, okay.
And I had a meeting with Davenport where we went over this, and I can't explain, the difference in the budget development.
But there should be no, this is not going to affect the school system on their payments because it's actually, their payment's going to be the same. It's just the
Yes.
interest rate.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, maybe Mr. Brad is here. Maybe he can share some feedback on that.
Dr. Brads, do you need to share? Do you think we're all good? It appears. We're good.
Well, in terms of the debt service, our staff with Crum and Davenport found the interest savings.
Dr. Brads, if you could just briefly say that so people could hear it, I'm sorry. It's what you get for being in the audience, I guess.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Our staff, our finance director, Mr. Dean, worked with Mr. McCrum and Davenport and found this item where the interest wasn't credited back to us. And so as a team, we worked together, found that savings, which is able to reduce our debt service payments. So it is good. No negative effect on us. Actually, it's a positive effect on reducing the debt.
The county handles the debt amortization
Yes,
schedule,
yeah,
so they were just
and
relying on
it doesn't
our
change our payment.
information, so,
Yes.
yeah.
Great, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the board approve the budget amendment as presented.
The budget amendments, I guess?
The budget amendments,
Yeah.
plural, as presented.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor in a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Next up, the board will consider a resolution ending the IT state of emergency. Mr. McCrum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, fiscal year 26 was a year of focusing on infrastructure investments in our IT systems due to the June network outage. Fortunately, due to the stellar work of our IT team led by Matt Komar and Jesse Martin, we are now in a position to recommend rescinding our state of emergency in roughly 13 months from the incident. So you will now hear an update from our director, Matt Komar, and Jesse Martin on that topic.
All right. Well, good morning. So this morning, we're going to take you through a pretty comprehensive overview of the incident that occurred in June of 2025 and really try to give you a better idea of some of the things now that remediation has progressed. We can discuss a little more openly as we're on a much better footing. So we're going to look at the failure itself, the response to it, and kind of the path forward from here. But I think the main takeaways we start off on this is that we're operating now in a secure and non-emergency footing for the first time since June. So Matt, if you want to talk about the trigger point and kind of how we got to here.
All right, cool. I guess I would say that the trigger was that the prior network infrastructure implemented initially in 2015, and it was a stack of cards, upon cards upon cards, and what should have been a fairly routine hardware swap that took place on June 5th of 2025 caused the house of cards to collapse. What took place then is it took down the entire network across the county, all services, public safety to animal shelter to airport to landfill to everything. At that point, people came in, right? The feds came in, VDEM came in, I came in, and we. All right, sorry, my bad. At that point, when we all came in, it was whack-a-mole, and it was a very intense game of whack-a-mole for a week until we found initial recovery, and then it's been about 10 months beyond that of continued whack-a-mole, finding problems as they would crop up. There was additional failures associated with the equipment being antiquated, consumer grade, decade old. And so during that time, as a part of the remediation, what we've been doing is implementing a standalone network next to it. With the new equipment that was the purchase is approved by the board, we stood up a secondary network next to everything and then shifted over the workload onto the new network. At this point, there are still things to do. However, again, the question I was asked about my confidence in rescinding the state of emergency is largely, I answer that with two statements. One is that we're no longer at a point where public safety is for a period of months, it was being impacted on the daily, and we're past that point. Public safety itself is stable, and then beyond that, there is no segment of the network that could take down the entire network. That, with the old infrastructure, was the case. Somebody moving the wrong cable at the animal shelter could have taken down 911 again. It wasn't great. At this point, we're past that point. We're at the point where things are operating on the new network, and where everything is segmented to the point where failures that could occur would then be contained to the area that they are.
So one of the initial hurdles that coming into this, I mean, just like any road trip or project that you would do, is starting off with kind of a game plan. And one of the most complex pieces of this particular project was the difficulty of discovery. There was a lot of discovery that took far more time than it normally would take because we had a lack of documentation of network changes. We had pretty poor documentation of upgrades and really poor documentation of the equipment on the network out of the gate. So each individual piece of the network, when we're trying to look at the departments that were affected and trying to understand why there's a core network failure, but it's not just isolated to one department or one division. It's not taking down one system, but it was taking down effectively everything in the network. And then we would have situations where, as we were trying to bring it back online or trying to make the situation better, you would lose internet but keep the phones. Have phones but lose the internet. Have internet and phones but have no access to the core network. And a lot of that really came down to these points here. So since 2015, 2016, that was the last major initiative that we, through discovery, were able to determine the last major initiative to shore up the network and modernize it. And then what we came into once we had this failure in the network infrastructure was that typically in an IT upgrade, and Director Komar can speak to that as well, but typically the standard thing to do is to fail back onto the equipment that you have. So I'm trying to put something new in place, it's not going well, I fail back onto old equipment. Unfortunately, we didn't have that plan or ability to do that because the equipment that was in place had not been refreshed, had not been updated, and had not been improved since that 2015, 2016 range. And then when you talk about the network having really complex topology, creating network loops, which is ultimately was the major factor that brought the network down the first time. And then when we get into things that are pretty standard in managing your network, configurations and updates were not applied consistently across the network, and that was from all ends, from the server end all the way to the endpoints, the computers. Everything was kind of out of sync with each other, so were they operational day to day prior to the June incident? Yes, but was it operating like it should? Probably not, and there should have been some indicators that proceeding down a path to try to inject brand new equipment into the existing infrastructure was not going to work. And there were some of those indicators that we later found out were ignored, and we kind of pushed forward, and that got us to the state where the network was brought to its knees, really. The other major findings that we had were unmanaged endpoints. So devices on the network being kind of rogue, able to do their own thing, no ability to track them. That's a very standard network practice that should have been in place. And then the core infrastructure, several components of it on the network were either undocumented and were being operated, but no one really knew what it was doing on the network. And more importantly, when it came to failing backward onto your existing hardware, the hardware that was in place was unlicensed. So we had a lot of very long conversations with the Cisco's and other firewall vendors and things, getting them to allow us to operate in their environment for just a little bit longer while we got this handled. So I think it's important to look back and understand kind of how we got to that state, because it doesn't happen overnight. From what we were able to put together, understanding the progression, it looks like about 2014 there was a pretty significant planned upgrade, and a budget was presented for about $3.5 million. It was initiated in 2015, and that's where we saw the core switches and things that we were working with in 2025 were purchased in 2015. But then over the next sequential years, that project appeared to be defunded, and the network modernization back in the 2010s was never fully completed. And so when we go forward to 2025, what we had was a situation where we were working with almost 15, 20 year gap in there in technology. So that made it a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, we were living on a decade-old mistake of half measures.
Yeah. So just to be clear for the cost, there are three different costs that sometimes are getting lumped together. So the board, you all approved the $2.85 million for the one-time emergency rebuild of the network infrastructure. And then we've also seen a subsequent increase in the IT budget for fiscal year 27. So this isn't a continuation of more spend. A lot of this came down to some key factors. The consolidation. So previously, technology purchases were spread across multiple departments. They were being handled multiple ways, which caused even additional issues that we weren't really expecting. Not having licensing all grouped under the county, really core critical things. We also had the increase in the IT budget is related to cybersecurity, managed services, SaaS licensing, which is not really this huge increase. It's effectively bringing up to what is normal for a locality that has this many employees to be spending on an IT budget when you're talking about making sure that all employees have licensed products, they have the tools that they need to work, they have email, that sort of thing. Separate from this, but again, sometimes it gets lumped into this, is the software modernization for the ERP and HRIS, which is a different CIP line and was something that was planned for. So just to be clear, that's kind of the breakout of those. As far as understanding IT spend, so if we're taking a sample of 40 counties across the state that are same or similar size to Culpeper, so if we're looking at the fiscal year 26 budget, the easiest way to look at it is per capita. So we were spending about third lowest in the sample group as far as IT spending per capita. So the Virginia median is about $37 per capita. Virginia average is $51 per capita. So with the FY27 budget, we're near the median and not over the average. So again, just kind of reinforcing that it seems like a big increase, but really it's a
correction.
A correction, yeah, absolutely. So Matt, do you want to talk through kind of the day-to-day?
Yeah, so during the time between, I guess, the recovery in mid-June and as recently as a few months ago, we were able to maintain business as usual for the bulk of the staff. However, IT we've been working 7 days a week, 12, 14-hour days to make sure that that's the case, to keep things online. We've been patching and maintaining that house of cards, and it's only been in the past month or so that we were actually able to really get things over. The standard for something like this, well, there's not a standard. When we were talking to the vendors about doing the operation that we wanted to do here, every one of them out of the gate said you can't do that. Like you need to swap a piece at a time. You can't stand it up and move it over. And then after we showed them some slides, they were like, okay, you can't do it, but it's the only option. Let's do it. So they got on board with it. That being the case, in that time we've been bringing about the stability and God, really going. Anyway, sorry, I got sidetracked. We brought things online. Oh, yeah, as we're going. What you would typically do when you're doing something like this is start with the least sensitive piece first. So, a department that's not open on weekends, that isn't germane to public safety, that kind of thing. But we couldn't take that chance because with things still being interconnected the way they were, there was concern that if we start poking the bear somewhere less sensitive, then during the middle of that, 911 would go down again. So the decision was made, we had to do 911 first, and so that's what we did. We had a plant outage, a plant service outage. We leveraged our partners out in Fauquier and had them assume our 911 calls, and ultimately it was under an hour of downtime as far as what was necessary for the migration to get public safety over to the new network and get it up. There was a specific vendor that leveraged that outage to do some updates and some maintenance on their equipment. So we kept things soft down for a little while longer to give them that opportunity during that outage window, because typically you don't have that in a 911 system. But beyond that, that went well, and subsequent to that, we've then been going site by site and moving things over, and that gets us to where today.
And I would say that the speed side of it, the emergency authority was a really critical component to this because it did allow us to move faster in some instances where we were continuing to experience outages or failures of the existing equipment, but it was also gave us the ability to look for existing cooperative contracts and make sure that we were being as compliant as possible while also cutting down what takes months and months typically. One of the biggest challenges.
And I also want to just throw out that I think this is important. I previously commented on the two standards with which I felt like we were out of the state of emergency. I do want to share that during this crisis back in June when we were dealing with it and we had the federal authorities involved and we had VDEM engaged, they were the ones who actually made it clear very strongly to us that it was critical that we maintain that state of emergency until we're at the point where we're not one Jenga piece away from falling back into it. And we, I have data to support the assertion that up until a month or two ago, we were still at that point where we were one breath away from re-entering that state. And so to maintain that posture what was what came to us by the expert in this kind of field, right? The Virginia Department of Emergency Management and the feds that were here consulting, they were very clear that you are not out of danger, right? Danger close. You need to maintain this posture. Do not let your guard down. And we didn't. And we've maintained that position for a year.
So as far as the process in the first weeks, again, it was triage and containment, and then really it took months to stabilize it to any level of day-to-day operation. But the ongoing efforts have focused around planning, making sure that what is being done is documented, proper segmentation, redundancy, moving to the cloud, and making sure that we're meeting the standards that we need to, and not also making it impossible to work, right? There's security and then there's logical security. If we took everybody's mouse and keyboard, that would be super secure. But you have to think through this and find like a logical way to work day to day. And the biggest piece was finding some pretty creative ways to minimize downtime while we were doing this. It was like performing surgery on somebody who's still awake
While they're playing golf.
So just to understand the scale, so we do have a very large network. So we have about 30 sites, some of which were not previously addressed properly or brought into the network properly. All of those were addressed. We had 2,500 when we could finally get some insight into the network. We were pretty stunned to see 2,500 devices and endpoints come online because that was far outside of what we were expecting to see. I believe there were even some electrical vehicles that
there were some Teslas and Chevys on the internal private network. That was cool.
Yeah, so that's been mitigated. So we did not have an existing network map to reference, and altogether, we were mitigating impacts to all the departments again. We did secure, with the help of Captain Deal and the Sheriff's Office, we were able to secure about $399,000, just slightly less than that, of grants to help offset the cost of this. And that was applied to the public safety side of the network, making sure that we brought the public safety side to the standard that they needed to be, and to make them a lot more resilient moving forward. So now the network, we have proper segmentation, redundancy, we have proper monitoring, firewalls, we have cloud-based identity, and public safety has been hardened to expected standards or a little bit better. So the other important things that we were able to mitigate, the segmented architecture. If you want to talk through that.
Yeah, really, what it boils down to is the internet, by definition, is a network of networks, and our internal network is now a network of networks. The idea being there is a proper separation such that a compromise or negative
negative situation in any one part of the network will no longer have cascading impacts across the rest of the network, taking it down.
Yeah. Yeah, so and again, documentation, inventory, devices are monitored. We have endpoint monitoring in place, modern equipment, security protocols, and the core systems secured, stable. And we were able to go forward with this, and we're about 6 months ahead of the initial 18-month timeline that we had. Our outer range was 24 months. There was a lot of convincing vendors to get on board with doing something fast in government. It was quite confusing to them at times, but we were able to really get good systems in place, the right people and partners.
Yeah, the 18-month was made clear to us again by VDM and the feds that were here, that we needed to spend a substantial amount of time planning, and then once we began implementing, that there's absolutely no way that this could be done within 18 months. That we are looking at the 24-month range, and so we fixed the plane while we were flying it and got it done in essentially a year.
So the remaining planned work would not be considered emergent. So the initial threat that we worked through is handled. There is still work to be done, and a lot of work to be done when you really take stock of it all. But we're in a much better place. So from the county, the citizen perspective, it made everything about the county's network and technology put us in a better footing, making sure that we have, when you dial 911, it's going to work as expected. Emergency services has the network connections that they need. Your money, your tax payments, your records, your data, and everyday protection is in place, and you have a modern IT infrastructure here in Culpeper. Any questions?
Questions, comments? All right, Supervisor Farish.
Thank you. What did all this cost the county?
So we have not exceeded the 2.85 million that you all allocated for the remediation and the hardware at this point.
That's the hardware. What about your services?
Yes. So I don't have the exact number. I can certainly get it to you, but we have operated within the remediation budget that was allocated. We haven't exceeded outside of that.
If you would.
Yes, sir.
Hey, yes, Supervisor.
Yes, sir. Gentlemen, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for your terrific ongoing work and work in the past and work in the future. And speaking of the future, I did want to ask, so the plan moving forward, I know, Chief Comer, you said that there are still things to do.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah,
and I think I'm looking more sort of not just in the immediate future, but I guess what I'm looking for is our plan moving forward, year 2 from this point, year 3, year 4, year 5, and the associated costs to make sure that we continue to upgrade, to make sure that we continue to modernize, that we don't let this happen again. Do we have a kind of a plan in place for that, or we haven't gotten to the point where you all have been able to sort of
I'd say we're
map that ahead?
at the beginnings of that.
I'm sorry?
We're at the beginnings of that.
Okay.
We're taking a breath for a second. We definitely we definitely know that we have some runway. So
But we want to have that.
Correct. We want to maintain that.
Okay.
Right.
And I did see something, really loved your data, great information. I believe I saw where at one point, maybe in the previous fiscal year, the amount dedicated IT was, I think it said $917,000. I'm assuming that was on a given fiscal year.
Okay. Fiscal 26.
All right, and since then, it is now 2.28. And so now it's 2.28 million. And so we can anticipate a similar figure on an annual basis for IT investment.
That is correct.
Moving forward.
So
of course, I'm assuming it will probably increase as we go down the road with each year.
That is correct.
But we are planning for those kinds of things to make sure that this does not occur again. And we're going to be putting that amount of money, investing that annually, and that's part of our IT plan, correct?
Right, to maintain a good posture.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Thank you.
We don't want to have the same conversation in 2036.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Supervisor Brown?
I would just like to thank you. I know when I came on board, I knew when the system went down on the 5th. It was apparent the courthouse was, the phones weren't working there, and I still went along with my everyday thinking, okay, no big deal. Within hours, the things were over there, and it was great. I had no idea. I come in here in January, and I never will forget what you said to me when you tried to explain to me what was happening, because I didn't understand why we needed, I'll be honest, $2.8 million to put into IT, and I'm thinking, what? You know, have y'all lost your mind? And you explained that we were basically, had been in critical ICU, and for me not to think that we were out of ICU, just because the critical part of ICU was gone, we were still very much in ICU. And you explained, who I did not know, even Mr. Comer at the time, had not had a weekend off since June, much less the 9 hours that were spent, plus, you know, the day-to-day runnings. And I was just amazed, first of all, at your commitment to it, which I just thought, God almighty, how do you do it? And, but to know that we were that critical, where our citizens, and on an everyday basis, had no clue. But our sheriff's department, our 911, they were very aware of it, and the support that the whole county gave in that direction was amazing. And I want to thank all of y'all, Captain Deal, Chilton, all of you. Y'all were great. Thank you.
Supervisor Bates?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to piggyback off of Supervisor Brown that kudos to both of you guys. And I think the highlight that I want to bring out is the collaboration that you had between all the end users when it comes to the 911 public safety side of it before we did this switchover. And Chief Perryman, with the association, thank you for, you know, bringing lapses in communication before we pulled the trigger on this thing, because it could have gone a whole lot worse. And to have this thing turned over in 2 hours with no glitches, my hat's off to each of you all and everybody involved when it came to that. And a special thank you to you and Captain Deal when it came to getting that grant. I mean, people don't realize, our previous chairmans are here today, I think they all can attest to the fact that it was scary. And when your house is, you've got a house fire, or you're having a heart attack, or there's an emergency and you call 911 and there's no answer, we can't have that. So again, thank you both and everybody involved. And I'm hoping that this board it's been an eye-opener for everyone. It's kind of embarrassing to say that, yeah, we're spending $16 per person per capita, that we don't want to go back down this road. And, you know, I appreciate, Mr. Martin, your comments that, you know, we couldn't disclose all this in the past because you're exposing vulnerabilities. And when you're dealing with people's personal information, we don't want a situation where we're hacked and that's out in the public. So going forward, I hope we continue on the path of, you know, getting things to where they should be, and that the board will realize in future years that, you know, we can't, if we're going to cut something, that IT is not one of them that we want to play with. So again, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Same from me. It's just a simple thank you. I remember my first introduction, Kumar. We spent, I think it was a Saturday.
Yeah.
We spent a Saturday and we sat there. I remember having lunch with you and having Thai, and I saw your dedication not only to your department but to the county. So thank you guys. Thank you.
All right. No, if one moment, guys. Sorry. Thank you all very much for what you did, but just from my standpoint also, it's important to note, as you said, it's a year. So June 5th to July 8th or whatever, 13 months, and it was done a few weeks before. So that's awesome. I mean, you kept going, you got it done ahead of schedule. Last year, the board met, authorized the funds, and you all delivered and under a timeline. And so fortunately, we're in a position where we can rescind the state of emergency, and thank you both very, very much.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to rescind a state of emergency?
Mr. Chairman, based off of the report given by Mr. Komar and Mr. Martin, I make the motion that effective today, we rescind the IT state of emergency.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? State of emergency is rescinded. Thank you. Next, general county business, 4.01, Mr. McCrum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you all know now, today is Kim Ellis's last day as deputy clerk. It's been my honor to serve beside her, and I will now be reading a resolution into the record which recognizes Kim for her outstanding service to the county. Resolution of...
Real quick, we'll note she's staying with the county, just moving right down the street, so we're not going that far. Thank you very, very much.
Resolution of appreciation for Kim Ellis for her exemplary service as deputy clerk to the board. Whereas Kim Ellis began her career with Culpeper County in 2014, serving the Board of Supervisors, county staff, and the public with absolute distinction and dedication. And whereas during her tenure as deputy clerk, Kim demonstrated skill, precision, and organization in managing agendas, accurately recording official minutes, and ensuring the smooth operation of county governance. Whereas far beyond her technical excellence, Kim became an immediate friend and a warm, welcoming presence to everyone she met, brightening the halls of local government with her kindness, infectious positivity, and genuine care for others. Whereas Kim consistently navigated long public meetings and complex administrative demands with grace, patience, and a helpful spirit that deeply impacted her colleagues and constituents alike. Whereas she demonstrated an unwavering commitment to professional development and excellence in local government administration, earning her certified municipal clerk designation in 2018 and achieving prestigious status of Master Municipal Clerk in 2022, and graciously leading the Virginia Municipal Clerks Association as president during the 2025 and 2026 term, while concurrently serving on leadership tracks for the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. And whereas her dedication to service extends beyond government service, as an active member of our community through her enthusiastic participation in the Lions Club and her service as an election officer. Whereas Kim is leaving her role as deputy clerk to accept a vital new position as elections manager for the Registrar's Department, where her integrity, organizational talents, and passion for public service will continue to benefit our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Culpeper County Board of Supervisors that Kim Ellis is hereby commended and deeply thanked for her outstanding service, her profound dedication, and the warmth she brought to her role as deputy clerk. Be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors, county staff, and the citizens of Culpeper County extend their warmest congratulations and best wishes to Kim for her immense success and fulfillment in her new role as elections manager. Presented this day on the 7th of July, 2026.
You come forward with
Anyway, I thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Kim, very much for your service. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and I've learned so much from you, and I'll miss you greatly. And best of luck at the Registrar's office. I will be.
Next, 4.02, the board will hear an update from RRRC regarding a regional update.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Patrick Mauney. I'm Executive Director of the Rappahannock Rapidan Regional Commission. And have some few slides here. I promised Mr. McCrum I'd be less than 10 minutes. I'm gonna stick to that. I last spoke to the board May of last year. So for Mr. Payne, Mr. Farish, Ms. Brown, it's nice to meet you and certainly look forward to working with you. The chairman, Supervisor Deal, Supervisor Bates, and currently Supervisor Lee have all served terms on the Regional Commission Board as an appointee from the county. So they're at least a little bit familiar, but I find it's a good refresher even for our current board member. Regional Commission was chartered in 1971, so we've been around for more than 50 years. We're one of 21 planning district commissions in Virginia. We provide a lot of different services, primarily long-range planning across a variety of focus areas, but we also have program delivery specifically with in this region with transportation and homeless services, along with a lot of other partnerships. As it says right there, Supervisor Lee is your current representative. The county does have a second representative that's currently vacant, and I look forward to either a board member or a potential new county administrator being appointed in the future. The town of Culpeper is also a member, and so from the town, Councilmember Ramikis and the town manager serve on the Regional Commission Board. Our budget for current fiscal year 2027, just a little bit over $2 million. Our budget's increased about 85% in the past 5 years, so we had typically been about $1 million, $1.1 million, $1.2 million, but that's grown with a couple of programs that have continued to grow in the past decade. Local contributions, each county and town pays an 83-cent per capita dues rate. That's been unchanged for the past 10 years. The county for fiscal year 27 and 28 contribution is $28,769. As I mentioned, we're the homeless services lead agency in the region, and there is a supplemental request that the county provides a little bit more than $9,000, and again, that's unchanged since 2015. For our budget, you can see there 92.5% of our budget is non-per capita. So that $28,769 with the rest of the 4 counties and 8 towns in the region, we leverage that with about 90% or more of federal, state, and other foundation or nonprofit grants that come into the region. And including the homeless services contribution over the past 10 years, we're about 87% of our revenue is non-local government revenue. We have 14 full-time, 3 part-time staff working across a variety of fields. Our core program areas there, and I'm going to talk a little bit in detail about these moving forward. Transportation planning, mobility management, which is the Regional Transportation Collaborative Program that we manage and operate. We do environmental and natural resources planning, agriculture, farm to school, local food system promotion, economic development, regional tourism partnerships, community development, including housing, housing studies we've done in the past. I'll speak a little bit more about that in just a minute. Hazard mitigation, which is something I'll detail as well. And then again, that homeless services lead agency role with the Foothills Housing Network. You can see the other activities, which are more on an ad hoc or an as-needed basis from local governments that we provide. And a lot of times it's looking for opportunities where we're hearing not just from Culpeper County, but the other 4 counties, the towns on, here's something that's impacting us. How can we talk about that? Are there opportunities for all of us to work together on a solution? So transportation planning, one of our roles is as a liaison between counties, towns, and VDOT. You passed 3 resolutions this morning for Smart Scale. The commission also passed a resolution at their meeting in June to support those projects. It wasn't mentioned, but projects that are on corridors of statewide significance, such as the Riva Road and White Shop project, do require regional review and concurrence, and we provided that. We're currently updating an active transportation plan, so that includes not just walking and biking, but also river access, looking for opportunities there where there may be good opportunities to encourage additional non-motorized transportation. And we have a commuter services program which does marketing and attempts to move people into non-single occupancy vehicle trips, predominantly into Northern Virginia, but also Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, depending on where they're going. Mobility management, as I said, the Regional Transportation Collaborative, this is a program that is built out of a mandated federal and state plan that occurred in 2010. It's called the Coordinated Human Services Mobility Plan. After that time, ourselves and Encompass, which at the time was Rappahannock Rapidan Community Services, worked together to build this Regional Transportation Collaborative. And really what that is now and what we operate is a one call center, a mobility center, where we take calls from, largely from senior citizens as well as those with disabilities, but anyone can call in, and our role is to try to connect them with the best transportation for their need. In a lot of cases, that means Virginia Regional Transit as the regional public transit provider. But we also have a very large volunteer transportation program that operates in the region with a number of partners. Voltran is the primary partner that works across all 5 counties, but we also partner with Rapid Home and Rappahannock, again with Encompass Community Supports, Low Link and Orange County, and also have periodic partnerships with a lot of the other organizations mentioned there, including Culpeper Hospital, the free clinics as well. On environmental and natural resources, again, our role largely follows a lot of times when a state agency says we're looking for some feedback and we'd like to speak. As I said, there's 21 planning districts. A lot of times the state agency finds it's somewhat simpler for them to say if we can get some feedback from 21 rather than 95 counties and 43 independent cities in Virginia. And when we take that in, what we'll often do is work with your staff at the county level to review, those requests from, in this case, like it says there, the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Implementation Plan. And the other item that I highlight on this slide is ongoing right now, mandated water supply plan. So the state has a mandated process, and in the past, that mandate was allowed to be fulfilled at each county level. So in our 5-county region, there was a plan that Culpeper County and Town worked on for water supply. There was a plan for Fauquier County and the towns in Fauquier County. They had their own. 3 years ago, the state decided that's too many plans, and so we're going to identify some regions. Our region is coincident with what is called the Northern Piedmont 1 Regional Planning Unit, and so we are currently serving an administrative role to coordinate that plan. It's not due until 2029, but we are working with your staff and county administration in completing that plan to meet the requirements that the state sets out. You can also see we've done a lot of different projects with some of the partners there, and that includes Soil and Water Conservation District, Friends of the Rappahannock River Basin Commission. One example is at the Carver Center, and this was 2 years ago that we completed this, but this is the permeable pavers that are at the parking lot on the south side of the building. I saw on the agenda there's a potential request for industrial revitalization fund at Carver Center, and I always like to point out that in 2015, the commission was a grant recipient through Department of Housing and Community Development to just do a feasibility study, basically to inventory the current status of the buildings at the Carver Center, and I think the investment that the county has made after that time, following on that kind of study and architectural review. Really it shows it takes time to complete projects, but there's at least 2 buildings that were demolished as a result of that and all the additional investment, so it's always good to see that. And even in small ways, we'd like to continue to be involved, not just with the community kitchen, but certainly on the environmental side too. So hazard mitigation and resiliency, again, I go back to the word mandate, but there is a federally mandated plan for hazard mitigation, which runs through Department of Homeland Security and through FEMA. They're updated every 5 years. Our current hazard mitigation plan was updated 2023 to, 2024, 2025. It was in review, and because of some of the shutdowns at the federal government level, review took quite a long time, but we did receive word last month that our update was approved. And so I imagine you will see at a future meeting a request to adopt that plan locally. What that does is it makes you eligible for certain grant funding at the federal level through Department of Homeland Security. The biggest change this year in terms of our update was we also incorporated a resilience plan aspect to the hazard mitigation plan, and that opens up potential funding sources through the Commonwealth Flood Preparedness Fund at the state level for flood resiliency projects. I think hazard mitigation is a really good example of a lot of the work we do at the Regional Commission involves multiple departments at each county and town. So in this case, we're working with emergency management, we're working with community development department, we're working with your public services, public works department, even parks and recreation in terms of some of the potential resiliency projects as well. So a lot of times we find that we're communicating with multiple departments at a town or a county. The bottom two bullet points are just examples of some of those regional analysis that we've done in the past. We did a heat island analysis in 2024 and a GIS utility scale solar analysis based on requests from our local government members. On the ag, food system, and farm to school side, we have the Purely Piedmont brand, which is a local food marketing brand. It's a free opportunity for anybody that's producing, whether it's foods or beverages locally, using locally grown and produced products. They can have stickers to put on as a value add as part of that Purely Piedmont. We have a food council, and you can see their sort of priorities there, but a lot of this does overlap with the work at the Carver Center with the George Washington Carver Food Enterprise Center. We have with some funding from the PATH Foundation, we have a farm to school liaison or a food systems specialist, and the staff person that does that spends a lot of their time from August through May in schools across the region, mostly elementary schools, doing demonstrations of local food, providing taste tests to students as well. So that's been something where we've been pretty much in every elementary school in Culpeper and the other 4 counties as well. That's been a program for the past, I think we're entering our 5th year with that program. You can also see the farm to school grant that we received from USDA in 2024 allowed us to work with Carver Food Enterprise Center and Rappahannock County Public Schools, because there's a smaller amount on a pilot program to actually take local food, process it at the Carver Center, and then serve it at the Rappahannock County at the elementary school. So we're looking to expand that as well. Again, on economic development and tourism, you see Purely Piedmont, a slightly different brand, but that's the kind of the consumer side for tourism and for agritourism. So we work with a lot of different, whether it be wineries or other agricultural producers that have a tourism aspect to their business. Again, free, nothing that costs. We've also done some Virginia 250 coordination with the counties around here, Culpeper, because of the tourism investment and the town staff and the county staff as well on 250. We generally support rather than lead some of the work that is done on Virginia 250 and Culpeper. We also have a comprehensive economic development strategy, which was adopted in 2024, and that again supports a lot of the locally identified economic development strategies and opens up additional funding opportunities through U.S. Economic Development Administration. On housing, you can see there we did a regional housing study. It's about 5 years old, and we have talked about doing a data refresh. I was at a Greater Piedmont Realtors event earlier this year in March, where they actually did a similar kind of data collection that we had done, used some of the same kind of analysis as part of that, and felt pretty good because a lot of their findings were similar to what we found, although there were certainly enhancements, things that had changed in the 5 years in between our study, but we're considering looking for additional funding to update that. We had a grant from the Virginia Housing to support housing development, and that was from 2021 to 2026, and as part of that, invested some funding in the 2 projects in the town at Lightfoot Apartments with People Incorporated, that the county, was a key part of in terms of having the land for that Lightfoot apartment complex, as well as providing some funding to Culpeper Community Development Corporation for Parkside as well. Also in March, we hosted a regional housing summit with several partners. This was up in Fauquier County. Really, the goal there was to just sort of continue that discussion. We know that housing and affordable housing will continue to be a priority and something that counties and towns are looking at. We look at it as not a single size, this is what everybody has to do, or here's the number that you need to do, but there are opportunities, especially when you get people in a room to talk about how there might be opportunities to partner, whether it is a example like the Lightfoot example where the school board, the town, and the county gave parcels to the project to make it work. I actually think that's something that other counties in our region would probably want to look to do if they have underutilized land or land they may not have use for, would be something that they might consider and may look to speak to the county and the town and the school board on that. And then lastly, in terms of our programs, we, as I said, we're the lead agency for Foothills Housing Network. I put the one item in bold there, Foothills Housing Network. If you've heard of it before, it is not a standalone entity or organization. It is a lot of different organizations that all have agreed, yes, we have some role to play in the homeless services system. That includes Culpeper Human Services, Culpeper Housing and Shelter Services in town, New Beginnings Outreach Center is a member, People Incorporated, Encompass. You can kind of see some others there. Again, our role at the commission level is largely on the administrative side, managing, making sure we're in compliance with state and federal requirements, submitting grant applications on behalf of our members within Foothills Housing Network, trying to bring additional funds to the region for homeless services as they're needed and identified. And it's just some stats from Homeless Services. You can see for FY25, so that's, and I will update that and can share that at a future presentation. Coordinated entry, which is sort of the hotline number for people seeking housing assistance, averaged about 1,000 contacts a month, with about almost 42% of those coming from Culpeper County and town. That's the highest percentage in our region compared to the other 4 counties, and then those calls coming from outside the region. And I do want to highlight that the majority of people that call in are not eligible for the programs that are available through Foothills Housing Network. And so a lot of times they're given resources at the community level. And I'm sure when you all as elected officials hear from your partners, whether it's churches or others, we're getting all these calls. It is because there is a lack of funding, not only for the federal and state programs, but because so much of it is pushed out towards the community in terms of that response. Last thing I'll say is just a couple of sort of on the horizon, what we're sort of working on right now. We continue to seek to support local projects and enhance those partnerships as we've seen shifting funding landscapes from federal and state level over the past couple of years. On an environmental side, we're looking at land cover, doing a land cover change analysis. And so this is something that is using data from the Chesapeake Bay Conservancy and would look at changes in land use and land cover and just what that means in terms of potential funding opportunities for largely environmental or best management practices for implementation. We're engaged with our partners that helped us plan the Housing Summit earlier this year and looking at opportunities for either bringing something back in 2027 or what that might look like in terms of more focused discussion. And just a couple of events that you are all certainly invited to. September 15th, our Regional Transportation Collaborative will have their annual Volunteer Driver Appreciation event. That's at Old House on a Wednesday night. And then we have an annual meeting every year where we give out from the commission a couple of leadership awards and have a speaker on a topic of interest, and that's going to be in the town of Orange on October 7th. But certainly we'll pass that information along once we have all the details in place to all of you, and look forward to seeing some of you there, hopefully. And I'm happy to answer questions, and if I talk too fast, I certainly apologize.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I don't have a question, but I have a recommendation for the commission, Patrick.
Yes, sir.
And I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the data center industry right now in our community. And I think there's a lot of fabrication that's going on as far as education, and I think it would be a good idea for maybe, at least for Culpeper County, maybe to dig into that. I think the citizens of the community would appreciate that as well on both sides, whether you are okay with the data center industry and what we're doing in Culpeper, or if you're not, which a lot of people are not, because they're hearing a lot of in my opinion, a lot of fabrications that are out there right now. I, for one, still believe that Culpeper County did the planning for our technology zone the correct way. And I hear a lot about, well, data center industry, data centers are going to use all our water. They're noisy. They're going to use too much electricity. And they're going to impact our health and cause diseases, cancer, et cetera. And nobody's really looked into that locally, I think even statewide, as far as putting the correct information out there, whether any of that is true or not. But in this case, I'm sure our Economic Development Director would work with you, Brian, who is here today. I think answering these questions and providing them to the community would be very beneficial. I think maybe having an intermediary consultant that's an expert, that is not a data center advocate or against data centers, but someone that has the knowledge and ability and can do the research and report back to the Regional Commission or to this board. For me, I mean, what we've done in Culpeper, I think, is perfect. We don't want any more data centers, but the past boards that put all the time and effort to complement the comprehensive plan, to plan to plan our technology park out, because in many of those areas over there, if you didn't have some warehouses going in, you would have houses back in there by right. People don't understand that. So you either have rooftops in that location, or you have some warehouses that are made up out of data center use. And a lot of people don't even understand the tax revenue that's coming in from the data center industry to help us keep our taxes low, pay for our debt, pay for quality of life projects, et cetera. So I just think it'd be a great idea if somebody stepped up and provided some truth, depending on how that truth is, and present it in a formal presentation to the board, and maybe that would be a good project for the Regional Commission to adopt.
Well, I appreciate that, Supervisor Deal, and certainly can work with Mr. Rothamel and with Supervisor Lee as a commission member and trying to figure out, if that is something we can do. Typically, I think if there's a consultant cost, then we'd probably be looking for grants for coming back, but I think that would be, worth a discussion. And last thing I would say, and I don't want to put Supervisor Lee on the spot, but one thing that we've certainly tried to do, and the board has tried to do over the past year to 18 months, is really have agenda items that are for discussion that honestly don't really have a commission action. And so there's been a broadband standing agenda item. There was a discussion, part of the county's ongoing search for regional jail, or, potentially, building a county jail. And so I think that's something here where it's not necessarily even at the beginning stages in the commission saying we need to do X, Y, Z, but having that part of the discussion, because I tend to think that's what you're saying in terms of people not understanding is probably fair, and probably something where it could be worth the discussion and seeing if there's a potential solution we could be part of.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
I ask the board to, I'm guessing, about 20 to 30 minutes left, but I never know these things. Do we want to continue or take a 5-minute break? Continue, okay. We'll continue. Budget carryover.
Thank you. So for fiscal year 26, we've identified about $1.5 million in unspent monies, which are requested to be carried over to the new fiscal year to continue ongoing projects that were not completed with the fiscal year 26 budget in the associated timeline. This is a budget amendment. In the past, this had been done administratively and hadn't come before the board, but I do want to note this is $1.5 million in addition to what you appropriated, so it's bringing your total above that. And it is also, it's beyond what we carry over every year automatically in our appropriation resolution, which is encumbrances, which is those funds on contract that are unspent, and then also CIP monies, which are rolled over automatically. So this is in addition to those. Provided you all with the sheet. These were collated by the department heads as ongoing funding requests for your consideration.
Questions, discussion, motion? Supervisor Bates?
Mr. Chairman, I think we really need a little bit more clarity on this because there's been, my constituents have asked, that there was on the county Facebook page, there was a post put out there talking about 2.75 million. We're talking about encumbrances, we're talking about allocations. And I think it would be a good idea to be clear that any monies that are carried over goes right back into the general fund, which is essentially the county's savings account. When we talk about a line item that was given to a certain department for whatever the case may be, that money is not just, it's not just free floating. In other words, it's not being increased. If they didn't use it, it would still be in that budget the following fiscal year. But there's a lot of uncertainty in the public's eyes and the way things have been explained, because I don't think that post on the county website, on the county Facebook page, was entirely accurate. And I don't know who the final say was on that, and I think that is something that we need to look at really, really hard, because putting that information out, it never goes away. But again, to be clear, this money, and in the past, previous boards, it's been unanimous votes on that money is put back into the general fund for the upcoming year. And if I'm wrong on that, I would appreciate a little more clarity, because I don't think I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've got a finance degree, but it's a pretty simple process, I would think.
Mr. McCrum.
So that is the reason for highlighting this process, is to allow you all to have that clarity on those funds. So the money we're talking about here in the 2.7 million from fiscal year 2025, yes, it does not go into the general fund. It's an additional appropriation in addition to the 286 million budget that you adopt. So 2.7 million was added to the budget in last year in unspent, unallocated funds. And there's three categories of carryover. There's encumbered funds, which are funds on a contract, which get carried over automatically per the appropriation resolution. There's CIPs, which get carried over automatically per the appropriation resolution. This was a third category, which I looked at, and I couldn't see approval for it on the appropriation resolution, so I'm bringing it to you all for consideration on if we want to do this practice moving forward. Department heads have relied on this practice to use unspent money for ongoing projects, as you see on the list. So I'm bringing it to you all for consideration per that sheet, if this is something you'd like to approve moving forward.
If my question is, we don't approve this, where's that money, where's that $2.75 million going to go?
So the 2.7 million for last fiscal year budget went into different lines in the budget administratively. It was increased.
And if we don't approve the 1.5 million now, it would go back to the general fund,
It would
right?
go back to general fund, correct.
So it'd
Which
go
is
to our
still-
savings.
It's still the county's money.
Yes. It's still the county's money, so the question is technically if there are some things, not the encumbrances, not the CIP, but other stuff that needs to roll over to next year, a best practice, as I understand it, is to say, here's what it is, and increase the budget by that amount.
So to say, Mr. Chairman, when you're talking, and I'm not going to disagree with the way you're explaining, when you're talking about best practices.
Yes.
I had a conversation yesterday afternoon with their finance director, and I'll lead the charge. I'm all about best practices and improving the systems. But again, the way this stuff is being portrayed, it's painted, it doesn't really paint a really clear picture to the public. It seems as though there's malintent going on, and that's not what I want to see happen.
Our goal, and so a few things. One, we are new to social media and to some degree, and our goal is to get better all the time. And as I talked about relative to best practices, I would hope that that's the way we describe things.
Well, we talk about social media and best practices. What I have seen since the first of the year, there's been a lot of actions that have taken place without a real good thought process going into it, and then we try to backtrack and cover our bases. And that, going forward, that is not a good way to run county government.
I agree with that. I was referring, I believe, to we now have a social media presence. We're like 30 or 45 days into it, and we'll hopefully get better every day.
Well, I know we're in Rules Committee is bringing forward with their PI, a public information officer. There needs to be checks and balances on who looks at this, whether it's the county attorney's office or the chairman or the board as a whole, or the county administrator, but somebody needs to be going over this stuff before you put it out on the internet.
Yes.
Understood, Supervisor Bates.
Relative to the list, does the board have a pleasure? Do we wish to carry this over, or?
I guess my question would be, do we need, is this something that, do we need more time for Supervisor?
I don't need more time.
No, for clarification? I guess the rest of the board, I mean, the comfort level with this, do we need more time with this? Do we need to come back and talk about it next month after it has more time, or, I guess that's a Shane
I
question.
could present an alternate solution as opposed to making a decision list today. I did want to bring this all in front of you as department heads have these numbers that they brought to me now. You could wait to take action on this until we close the fiscal year and have a fuller picture of how much is going back in the general fund, how much we're going to carry over, et cetera.
If people aren't comfortable, that's okay. To me, this is, department heads expect it. It's been provided to the board with time to, I mean, if the board's uncomfortable, fine. To me, it seems routine. It's somewhat consistent with what we've done in the past, but.
My only thought was just for, if I'm hearing, if there are people, if there are people that are concerned about it, whether it's the board or the public, and it sounded like Supervisor Bate mentioned that, so maybe just if there's some time for everybody to have more clarification and consideration, unless there's a reason not to do that, so.
Just to be clear, I don't need more time, but the comment that Mr. McCrum just made about that it's going on these line items and the appropriations, that amount has been increased, if it's within the guidelines that the county has set forth, I don't see where the problem is. But again, it's entirely up to the board on, if it's going to improve the process and give more transparency, I support the motion.
So if I'm correct, basically what you're saying is that in previous years, it didn't come to the board to make that recommendation, it was just done. So now what you're doing is bringing it to our attention that we have these funds and asking if it's our will and the county's will to let it happen. And that is typically your best practice.
Yes.
Thank you.
So a couple of the things that are on there on your list, you can see where we've had some of these things on for 2 years. So it's been encumbered money, but right now it's showing that it's no longer encumbered on certain things. And then there's donations. The problem with what we had seen and what we had found over the last 2 years is we didn't know what we had until the end of the year. We didn't have the ability to look at our general ledger lines, or we didn't have ability to look at certain things. So once we got to that point this year, we're seeing all that, and when they asked for us what we needed to carry over, we gave our short list. A lot of it's donated money, so it shouldn't be going back to the general fund. But the biggest number was the encumbered money for 2 years, which that was savings for the jail where we bought the Bearcat. So that's a chunk of money, but that's where we had to pay for that 2 years ago. It's been sitting there for 2.5 years. So we just rolled it over each year. So that's, when you look at the list, that's sitting in there.
So when we talk about donations, and I agree 100%, if this donation, the intent was to go to the sheriff's office,
It's
whatever.
it's donated to like our cadet programs, it's donated to Triad, different parts that we would normally use for just that spot.
But it is still going to the general fund, but it is earmarked for the
Should be.
sheriff's office. It should be, and I
Should
think
be.
that's the way it's been in the past.
Yeah.
Now, to your point of not knowing what is in that could be an issue that I'm
100%.
hoping that this new program and all is going to
Any
clarify.
programs that we do outside of what we're budgeted comes out of our donations. But our problem with it was, nobody knew where it was being spent until recently. And so we've been trying to work with finance our new director of finance trying to figure out where they need to be placed.
Well, I think anytime that we can have more clarity and we have a way to track it, I have no problem with that. But
Exactly.
again, I just want to be clear that the public understands what we're doing and why we're doing it. So,
Best practice.
So, Mr. Chairman, so just to clarify, so the vote is that the carryover funds are returned to each of the departments, correct?
The motion we would have is that, yes, that we budget, we would amend the budget as recommended by staff relative to the fiscal year '26 carryover requests.
And those carryover funds go back to the departments?
Yes.
Correct, okay. I'd like to make that motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Carryovers are approved. Public Works did not meet. Buildings and Grounds, Supervisor.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the committee brings forward a full recommendation, a grant application for the DHCD Industrial Revitalization Fund for the renovation of the second floor of the Carver School building. I believe the committee was unanimous in support of this grant application, so I'll go ahead and make that motion that the board approves the grant application to renovate the second floor of the Carver building.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been seconded by Supervisor Farish. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, item B, the committee brings forward for recommendation a courtyard renovation project developed by Zan Nelson and to add signs to the municipal building. Again, Ms. Nelson's beautiful project was unanimously received in a positive fashion by the committee. And so at this point, I believe that the board needs to, I would like to make a motion that the board approves her renovation plan in its current state so that she can move forward with finding funding sources for that project.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Last one, Mr. Chairman, the committee brings forward for recommendation to authorize staff to negotiate and execute a new lease agreement for 122 West Cameron Street, 118 West Cameron Street, and parking lot behind 302 North Main Street. And again, the committee was unanimous in support of authorizing staff to negotiate this new lease agreement. So I will make that motion accordingly.
There's a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Supervisor Lee. Supervisor Brown.
Yes, Rules Committee met, and we had quite a few items, as you can see, that we discussed. The committee first brings forward a recommendation to approve the FTZ application for Euro Composite Corporations.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next.
Second, the committee brings forward a recommendation to consider amendments to the finance policy, specifically the addition of an appendix regarding the administration of federal grants.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next.
The committee brings forward a recommendation on a social media policy for the county.
Second.
Sounds like we need this policy. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next, the committee brings forward a recommendation of suitability to interact with minors policy for the county.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
As you can tell, we've had a lot of these. I think it was just so people understand, it was the mere fact that they just didn't exist. So that's why they are being put before us. The committee brings forward a recommendation of a whistleblower policy for the county.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have any discussion? Yes, what's a whistleblower policy and what are we doing?
Amy, would you like to explain that a little bit more to them?
It's just putting in protection if a staff member comes forward with a credible allegation of something that we perhaps are doing wrong, and it protects them from being retaliated against or terminated.
And I can add a little context to these policies. We were gathering the materials together for a DCJS site visit for a crime victim witness program, and these policies were requested to be presented to the auditor. Fortunately, the audit was actually delayed, so we had some time, so we thought we should, these policies were needed to be presented, and we hadn't had them, so we thought we'd bring them before Rules Committee for their consideration.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next.
Next, the committee brings forward a proposal from the DEA with no recommendation.
So with that, yes, Mr. Rothmell.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, want to bring to your attention the EDA has a proposal, an entrepreneurship development initiative. I'll go through real just background very quickly. EDA was created. They operate as a subdivision of the Commonwealth. You appoint the 7 members to their board. They can do multiple things that I have there up on the screen, but primarily our EDA has only operated in making grants to businesses and vehicles for bonds and loans that the county has utilized, and that actually started this discussion. They meet semi-annually. They have an organizational meeting in January, February, and then they have the payment of our annual incentives, which we use currently for our manufacturing, and we have 1 technology zone incentive, or 2 technology zones happening currently. Obviously, that's going to increase as development keeps happening. Regularly, though, they wanted to do more, but they felt constrained without a revenue source. They don't have an ongoing revenue source other than they charge a 0.5% fee on all transactions, which includes the incentives that they pay out and the bonds. But that's not a significant source. So with that, during the bond discussion, they said they want to do more, but they also voted not to charge the county that 0.5% fee on the bond that the county was taking out. So we had Harrisonburg Economic Development Director come to visit. They have a similar population, and they have a similar office structure. They only have 2 people in their office as well. So we thought that would be a good match. And that's where they learned about the Entrepreneurship Development Initiative that's in Harrisonburg, and they wanted to bring that here. Harrisonburg EDI program, they use a contractor called Equal. I believe that's how you pronounce it. They provide the consulting for up to 20 businesses. The expense on that contract is $15,000 to $25,000. The maximum being 25 with additional charges possible. They have not, from my understanding, they have not gone to the additional charges. Participants set meaningful goals and then progress through them. They meet with subject experts related to their goals, so that's what the contractor takes care of. The contractor takes care of all the calls, and then they spend no fewer than 4 hours with the contractor, no more than 8 hours, and then once you hit the goal, the EDA pays a $2,500 implementation grant. So you've worked towards your goal, now go take that and kind of look at as a boost to the business. These are the requirements that Harrisonburg has for their program. Similarly, the Culpeper EDI, which the EDA has approved to come to this point, needs to be a for-profit business located within the county, must be registered with the Commissioner of Revenue if required. One conversation came up with that we do want farms to be able to participate in this. They do not have a requirement to be registered with the Commissioner of Revenue. Must have at least $5,000, but no more than $500,000 in annual gross revenues, which is a change, a little bit larger scale than Harrisonburg targeted. Must be able to provide proof of revenue through a 2024 federal tax return. And the business is locally owned or locally operated with headquarters here in the Commonwealth, and no late or delinquent taxes owed to Culpeper County. The reason why we're here is the EDA had asked the county to cover the cost of the consultant. They wanted to do this as a partnership. They believe that that would not exceed $25,000 based off of what we learned from Harrisonburg. The most important thing, though, the EDA would like to utilize county procurement so that they can put out the request for quotes out onto EVA and go through that process using county staff. And then the goal was that we would use our FY26 budget when we first talked about this in May. Obviously, that has since expired. And then we'd be able to skip FY27 and then go into 28. The EDA would cover the cost of the grant of $2,500 per business. The goal being 10 businesses would be participating in this first program. Here from the EDA is the chairman as well as the treasurer to answer any additional questions that the board might have.
Brian, thank you. It says in the agenda that that the money is for manufacturing businesses, for training.
Our
et cetera,
current,
et cetera,
so
or-
that incentive line that I was targeting is is the incentive that we give to our manufacturers. So the way the process works is manufacturers apply for their incentive. We take what their applications say, we put that in the budget, and then we go through the process of verifying that information. We don't just pay exactly what they say they owe. We go through the verification with the commissioner, commissioner of the revenue, with the treasurer's office, with finance, with county administration, and my department, and we always come lower than the budgeted amount. I do not know what, I'd have to check what our FY27, we might have the 25,000 in there, we might not. I would have to check those notes.
I believe my question is it open to businesses that are not manufacturing businesses?
So yes, that was just to use that budget line. While that is an operating budget line in my department's budget, I do not touch that other than incentives without coming to the board.
Okay, so any business would be
correct. You would be targeting with 5,000 to 500,000. You'd be targeting
Right.
small businesses.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
And I believe, if I'm right, Mr. Butler, you said the biggest thing, if I'm remembering back to that committee day, the funds, you have the funds to be able to do it, but you're just looking to have more interaction and partnership with the county.
Correct. So again, we do have funds that have been derived over years of these bond issuances that we've been a party to and earning the 0.5%. It's not sustainable for a long period of time. We had a good meeting with Supervisor Underwood and Supervisor Bates to explain that. So we're able to move forward with this program and plan to, but we want to establish more continuity with this board and what we can do, and what we're trying to target is an area of business that's not being targeted right now by some of the other groups that are out there, like the CIC, Community Investment Collaborative, People Inc., and so forth. And so these are active businesses that we're hoping that they can take it to the next level, which will then be a benefit to the county and also show that there are areas of government that are out there to support them and help them.
Supervisor Bates?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to go ahead and make the motion that we approve the ask of $25,000 to send a message that this board does believe in local small business, that we can do whatever possible to see them succeed and expand, hire more local people, keep more jobs here in Culpeper. And as a start, I think this is a small price to pay for the benefits that we might reap. So that would be the motion that we approve.
Perhaps, and also include the use of procurement, for county procurement as requested by the
Yes,
EDA also?
yes. Yes, I'll amend the motion to use county procurement.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I second that motion. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? At the committee level, part of the reason it came forward without recommendation was not for lack of support of the program. The program is extremely well received. I haven't heard of anyone say anything negative. It's a question of, does the funding come now or does it come later, as long as there is the commitment and use of county resources was broadly, nobody disagreed with that either. That said, I'm inclined to support the motion. Any further? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, and lastly, the committee brings forward a recommendation to refer a comprehensive plan amendment for Chapter 7 Utilities to the Planning Commission.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Economic Development Report.
Shouldn't have gone far. I want to talk to you about Be a Culpeper Local Week. From our strategic plan, this is 2.1, including objective 2.1, which is to continue Be a Culpeper Local Week. We're excited for the 5th edition here in 2026. And just a reminder, we've been talking about best practices. This is won awards from the International Economic Development Council. It's one of our programs that we're extremely proud of. And we'll kind of go through why it's returning for its 5th year, which is amazing. It's a 9-day program. That's because in Culpeper County, we work for our small businesses 9 days a week. That's why we keep it just to that week. But the business can sign up now on beaculpeperlocal.com/backle-week, backle-week. Participating businesses often provide specials. They are not required to. And the big thing I want to make sure we stress is that while this is very easy for a retail business to understand how to participate, we do have service businesses that do participate. And we encourage them, and we would love to see more of that throughout the entire county. The Department of Economic Development provides the necessary items such as marketing materials and bags, and then we also have a marketing post that we put out for the businesses that they really appreciate. Every year that we've done this, we've had 100% of our satisfaction from our businesses. So this is moving the needle. And one reason why is the residents participating by utilizing 5 businesses. So in the retail business, again, that's easy. You go and purchase something, you've utilized that business. In the service business, it might be setting up an appointment, getting a free quote, going to your dentist office, things of that nature. We had 6,100 transactions recorded by participating businesses last year, with more than $340,000 in economic impact for 2025. So this has definitely made a big deal in those 9 days in the 4th edition. And then this is the T-shirt here on the left. This year's T-shirt for those that participate. You can see the bags that we gave. This is from previous years, the bags of people participating as they went around. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate that.
Thank you, members of the board. I'll keep this quick. As you all know, we are now live in a new fiscal year and a new financial system, which is exciting. We are also live on a new pay system and pay cycle. People are now in NeoGov doing biweekly timesheets. Our FY27 budget book was published in late June, so that's live now. And then as you all just voted, the IT transition, network transition is nearly complete. I'll keep this light. Upcoming board schedule for you all in August. Well, July and August is relatively light. You all just have your regular board meeting on August 2nd, and there will be no evening meeting that day. That's all I have, pending any questions.
Questions? Thank you very much. What we're probably going to do at this point is, rather than entering, we can't really enter closed session and then go to lunch. We have interviews scheduled this afternoon relative to the county administrator position, beginning at 2:00. We do have closed session business in front of that, but perhaps it makes sense to recess until 1:45. Go into closed session, consider those appointments, do our interviews, and make motions after we're done with our interviews, so that we're just doing it all at once in closed session. That's great. We'll see everybody at 1:45. How about maybe do we need a motion to recess or not? Yes, so if we could have a motion to recess to 1:45.
Motion to recess until 1:45.
Is there a second? All right. Just real quick, I have been informed, and apparently was informed via email, so my fault for not seeing it earlier, that we have interviews from 3 until, well, we have 3 interviews, right, beginning at 3 and that go till 5, so it means we must have some break in there too. So because we had 2 cancellations, we are here an hour early. And unless somebody would like to do anyone else, I'll hand you back an hour and see you at 2:45, because we don't really have anybody to interview. And so I apologize. That's my fault, but nobody told me that we don't.
Do you want to go ahead and do the closed session items first, or we'll just wait?
We could, if you would, we can do closed session, come out and go back in if you all would like. Since we're all here, does that work? All right, if you read the motions.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we enter into closed meeting as permitted by the Virginia Freedom of Information Act for the following purposes: discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body, specifically related to candidates to consider for citizen appointment to the Culpeper County Board of Zoning Appeals, Encompass Community Support Board, and the Germanna Community College Board as permitted by 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia. And number 2, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment specifically related to the Culpeper County Administration Office as authorized by 2.2-3711A1.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're in closed session.